just finished watching Harry Potter amongst Pirates of the Caribbean, and it feels, and also Lord of the Rings and Star Wars has been finished a little while ago, and it felt proper to put together some videos for you all to check out. And this one is obviously a villain tier ranking. I'm looking at characters that are pretty definitively villainous. So Boba Fett, even though he is very villainous, might throw him in. Gollum too. I mean, they're more morally gray. Starting at the top, we have Pirates of the Caribbean's Beckett. I actually thought him to be a pretty decent classical villain, and while he isn't nearly as interesting as, some of the, big top tier villains which these movies do have, he was one of the better villains in Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm going to start out giving him C tier. We're going to see how things go as this progresses, though, and that could very well change. Next, we have Bellatrix from Harry Potter, and as far as villains go, I have to say she is one of the best in my opinion. She's really interesting. I mean, she is just the definition of villain as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to give her A tier. I think the kills that she did and the complete irregard for human life is what really not only made her a bad girl, but also it helped in making her interesting as well. And if you're enjoying this video, I implore you, please subscribe to the channel. Check out my overview video where I'm going to rank all of the characters, all of the movies, all on one tier list, including the villains. I really think you'll like it, and the tier list will be in the pinned comment down below. Definitely check it out. I'm sure there's probably some characters that you want to be added. Let me know down in the comments who you would want added. But on to the next villain. We have Blackbeard. He is certainly going to go below Beckett. I thought this was one of the weakest movies of the Pirates of the Caribbean series, that being On Stranger Tides. And quite frankly, a lot of that is due to Blackbeard just not carrying the weight in which the series has put on the villain in the past. I'm going to go D tier with him. That could go even lower. He just really didn't capture my imagination whatsoever and was very uninteresting, if I'm being quite frank. Next, we have Count Dooku, who I actually really liked. I thought he was cool, and his duels with Anakin were quite awesome. And the way that he goes is pretty awesome. He is kind of lacking a little bit of impact upon the actual story itself. But I like the actor. I like Christopher Lee. He's going to show up on this list again through Lord of the Rings. I'm going to put him solid B tier right now, and that is almost just purely based on personal preference. I feel like you could make a really good argument as to why he should be even lower, but I really enjoy him, and you're going to see I've my own peculiar biases, as I think most people do with these fantasy series. You like your people for specific reasons to you. Now we're going to go General Grievous. I think as far as looks go, he's really cool. I love the look of him, and he's built up to be a greater combatant than maybe we actually see him to be. He has all these Jedi lightsabers, and he's thought to be a Jedi killer, yet when he faces Anakin and Obi-Wan, he doesn't turn out to be quite that. I think I'm gonna go high C tier with General Grievous, just above Beckett. And again, those might change. Then we're going Barbossa. And this is difficult because he is a good guy later on. I still think I put him B tier, and I'm going to put him just below Dooku. Now we go Kylo Ren. The latest trilogy of Star Wars definitely has a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. If you watch my movie tier rankings, I think it's gonna infuriate a lot of the type of Star Wars fans that are deeply connected to all of that, because I went, you'll see when you watch it. With that being said, I thought Kylo was actually a really solid villain, for lack of a better term. And I'm going to go just below Bellatrix. I understand a lot of people probably thought him to be, what's the word that I'm looking for? Angsty. I get that. It's definitely going for a younger audience, that's for sure. But I thought him to be quite interesting and definitely held the movie together. I mean, without him, obviously, a lot of the things wouldn't work. But he was pretty good. He's one of the only good parts of the newest trilogy, if I'm being quite honest. I mean, they started a lot of cool characters, but Ben Solo, I think they did a pretty good job with for the most part. Next, we have Darth Maul, and I'm just going to be frank. I freaking love Darth Maul. His design, his fight style. He's one of my favorite villains of all time. People are probably going to hate that I just did that. But you know what? I rep for Darth Maul. Next, we have Emperor Palpatine. I really, really like him. I'm kind of, in my heart of hearts, I'm trying to decide, is he S tier? He's pulling all the strings in episode 1 through 3, and then he's again pulling the strings in episode 4 through 6, and then he comes back in 9, and you know, he has really impactful moments. He's interesting for sure. It's hard to... I definitely have him above Solo / Kylo. But I think as far as he goes, I have him just slightly below Bellatrix. Bellatrix is really damn interesting for me. She's... maybe stereotypical is a bad word, but... I mean, she is a classic villain, as is Emperor, but... I just think Bellatrix, that gothic look too, plays a lot into it, especially as the Harry Potter series kind of goes deeper down that road. Next, we have Peter Pettigrew. He's kind of a nothing as far as I'm concerned. I think it's between him and Blackbeard, and they're really close. You could probably... I'll give it to Blackbeard because he just played a bigger role in his film. Next, we have Professor Quirrell, who is kind of Voldemort, but not really. Interesting. Definitely interesting the way that they did that. I mean, it's really hard to say because Voldemort is cool. I'm going to go D tier. Just the twist of it was a really good twist. It was one of the good parts of that film. But ultimately, I mean, the final showdown that we get, he is dispensed with quite easily. So it kind of takes away some of the importance of that character. Next, we have Captain Salazar. Javier Bardem was, it seems like a home run on the face of it, and somehow ended up not being like the best villain of that series, which is crazy if you really think about it. I go C tier, and I'm going to go above Grievous. I did really enjoy his backstory. It just didn't connect really, I think, the way a lot of people thought that it would. Next, we have Sauron. Obviously, the technically main villain of Lord of the Rings. If you think about him also embodying the ring and being that negative energy throughout the entirety of it, and then take into account what he did on the battlefield, man, I love Sauron, and he's S tier for me. I really, really enjoy Lord of the Rings, and, you know, the eye being him is super cool. Thinking about that dark energy when the ring is worn being him is super sick. And then like that is one of the best parts of the first Lord of the Rings movie is when you see Sauron on the battlefield, and it's like, damn, I just want a movie about him. And he influences that so much. But next we have Saruman. I really, really like him. I wish, and I know there's a huge talk about this, that they should have done more with him, and I agree with that. He is on the edge of A tier for me, and I'm gonna put him right next to Count Dooku for right now, which is funny. We're gonna have Christopher Lee next to Christopher Lee on this. I definitely think Sauron, for me, I enjoy Sauron more. I think he could have been S tier. I think a lot of people will agree with that. He was really interesting. Just more screen time would have really done him well. This next placement is going to be, I think it's going to be quite controversial for everyone. It's Umbridge. Now look, I hate her so much that I want to put her in F tier, right? But that is what a villain is, what they should try to do. They should be someone you absolutely hate. So for that, I can't put her in S tier because there's something interesting about Darth Maul. There's something interesting about Sauron. But I think I have to put her top of A tier because as villains goes, I don't know if there's one more hated than Dolores Umbridge. Next we have Vader. This is pretty easy S tier. It really just comes down to where does he go. And I think for right now, all biases aside, he has to go above Darth Maul. It only makes sense, quite frankly, because his backstory is tremendous. The way he goes to the dark path is amazing. It obviously makes that film where it is revealed so damn good. And he's one of the best villains of all time. I mean, it's always debated. I mean, who's the best villain? And Vader pops up again and again. Next, we have Voldemort. He is one of my favorite characters of the Harry Potter series. And whether he's above Darth Maul, that's interesting. We get a lot more fleshing out of Tom Riddle and by proxy Voldemort through the series that we really don't get as much of with Darth Maul. Darth Maul, he actually, part of his allure is his mysticism, that he's only in that film. He's such a great combatant, but dies so quickly and epically. Voldemort, we obviously get a much bigger sample size, I put him above Maul for right now, and it does hurt my soul because I do absolutely love Maul. Davy Jones is really cool. He's really redeemable too, so I'm going to include some other people who they have villainous things. I'm going to include Snape, Gollum, and just double check and make sure there's I'll put Boba in there too. Anywho, Davy Jones, I think he has to go above Bellatrix. I was honestly, in my mind, I was going to go S tier when I was looking at him. I really like him. Again, I really like his backstory. But Bellatrix she's no slouch. At least in my mind, I really, really like her. So to go above her is pretty high praise from me, at least. I'm going to put Draco in as a foil goes. I'm going to put him right above Beckett. I honestly see them both pretty similarly as far as villains goes. Just kind of a nuisance that is dispatched of when needed. And just a kind of a minor obstacle. And I know he plays a big role in a good way as we get towards the end, but he's not too much more than that. But he is quite mean and plays the bully really well. Gollum, I have to go S tier with him. I'm going below Sauron, but his dalliance into evil that's just textbook storytelling. That, I mean, he embodies how evil can lure you and turn you into something subhuman. And I don't know if it's ever been done better in literature or in film, quite frankly. We're gonna go Lucius Malfoy. He's gonna go above Draco because he's definitely harsher and is more impactful in a villainous way, especially in the Chamber of Secrets. Is he quite Salazar level? I don't think. So I'm going to put him right above Grievous for right now. Next, we have Snape. I really do like Snape. I like Snape a lot. And when you get his tragic backstory and actually find out that he's not a villain is the thing. So to include him is definitely misguided, so I'm just getting ahead of the comments. But he's an anti-hero. That is what he is at heart. But he has to act evil to do good. So, I mean, go ahead and give it to me by including him despite that long diatribe. He's at least A tier, and in fact, I have to put him above Dolores. Do I put him above Gollum? I don't think so. I think I put him... He's right on the edge of A and B. Now, Boba Fett, he's B tier. He looks super cool. Let's be honest, though. You're introduced to him, and then he falls into the pit nearly immediately. So I see why people want to see more of him, and why in the Clone Wars it's so important that, they're cloned after him. I get that. But look, actual Boba Fett didn't really get enough time to make an impact. And for that, he's only B and not A. So we are going to add the last combatant / villain. That villain being Snoke. Quite frankly, Snoke falls into a similar kind of bucket as Boba Fett. He seemed like he was going to be a sick villain for sure, and doesn't end up really fulfilling maybe what our imagination was. So I can't put him much higher than Boba Fett, because I think, Boba Fett has a lot going for him as far as looks. Snoke looks very villainous, don't get me wrong, but the unfulfilled potential definitely makes this take a hit for him in his rankings. I hope you enjoyed this. It doesn't look like a normal tier list right now, as S tier is the most filled out tier, but I enjoy villains a lot, and they make the films as far as I'm concerned, for the most part. And definitely the S tier villains, the films are made what they are because of the villains. So you have to give them the credit that they deserve. I hope you enjoy this. Check out the tier list in the pinned comment down below and let me know your thoughts on my tier list, and I will catch you on the flippity floop. Bye, y'all.